Be a miracle if you see me on one of these calls.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Tuesday at 10 Zoom meeting. And we're going to go ahead and get started here and just give you some updates on what's going on with NAR. And ran across some information here that the Department of Justice is getting involved with some of these other lawsuits. So there's a lawsuit between a company called Rex, which is they're now defunct, but they were a low-cost brokerage. They sued NAR and Zillow because of the no commingling rule. In other words, if the property's not listed on the MLS, then it's listed in a separate section on Zillow and so uh, and that's a result of, I guess, NAR saying, not to commingle listings. And quite honestly, I'm for that. I mean, why would people who pay to have their listings in the MLS want their listings displayed right alongside of somebody who's not paying for the MLS? So I think from a fairness perspective, hey, we need a level playing field there. But anyhow, DOJ is probably going to weigh in on Rex's side. Same thing with Nolasec versus MLS PIN. They are going to weigh in on that lawsuit as well. So, further changes could be coming as a result of lawsuits. We don't know. But I just wanted to keep you up to date on what's going on with those things. Then a little bit from MIBOR. First of all, BLC access for unlicensed assistants. So if any of you have an unlicensed assistant, they're changing those rules. So MIBOR has covered the full cost of BLC access for unlicensed assistants, even though every user incurs a fee from vendors. So to help share a portion of these costs more equitably, they will be introducing an annual fee of $120 per unlicensed assistant who accesses the BLC. So there is, and that's going to, invoices will be available in late February and due by Tuesday, April 1st. So if you employ unlicensed assistants, you may get an invoice for them. Also, there is coming up here, technology fees are going to be due. They're due April 1st. It's always a joy to pay more fees, but the fees are going to be due on April 1st. You can set up your fee payments as an auto pay. So if you want to pay your technology fee and not forget about it and end up getting fined or shut off, you can set up your technology fee as an auto pay. And so that would give you the ability to pay that automatically. But that's coming up. Also, you should
Jim,
look through your community.
Jim, how much
Something?
is, yeah, how much is the technology fee, do we know?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the invoice yet,
Okay.
but it's usually around $275 to $300, something like that. Isn't that right? What do you guys remember?
I thought it was like 450.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. It's not cheap.
458 rings a bell.
Well, and that may be for an annual. Is that for biannual? Because technology.
I pay mine annually, yeah.
Yeah, the technology fee is paid twice a year.
I think last year was 245 each time,
Each
245.
time, yes. Okay, so that's almost $500 a year. Also, keep in mind from your taxes perspective, you cannot deduct the full amount of your MIBOR dues, and they have put out information regarding that of what the IRS allows to be deducted in dues. So you might want to just take some time to review that information. So that's it from the NAR and MIBOR perspective. I want to do a screen share here now, and okay, you should be seeing my screen now. And what I want to zero in on here, this is your Reallium Dashboard. And you can get to this from BoldTrail as well as just direct. It's us.reallium.net. Hopefully you can see that up there, usreallium.net. That's how you access this particular section. And there's important information here that I think is important for you to review on a periodic basis. So if you don't go here, you need to. And so they always start out on here with important announcements. And so they had a Q&A session with BoldTrail talking about how the tech pack works and what's included in it. And I provide this to you. That's included in your fees that you pay to Realty World Indy. And so I include BoldTrail with you. And I don't think most of you are taking advantage of all the things that BoldTrail has to offer. And so you might go in and review this video. I think it's about a 30-minute video. And it covers, it just gives an overview. It's not a training video or anything of that sort. It just gives an overview of BoldTrail and some of the features that are included in BoldTrail. And I think that it's important for you to take advantage of the tools that you're paying for and that are offered for you. Also, and so I watched this yesterday, and it's really chock full of great information. And then I watched this. This fellow here, Link Me cards, digital business cards. I mean, most of you are probably still buying paper cards. And, you know, with paper cards, if anything changes, you have to reprint and get new cards. And so if our suite number changes or whatever, maybe you get a new email address or whatever, now you have to go through the expense of printing new paper cards. And one of the problems with paper cards is that they're easily lost or thrown away. And so he has a digital business card. I bought one of his business cards, digital business cards, and that's what I use for my business card now. So instead of getting them a bended card that I've been carrying around in my wallet or something, I just give them my digital business card. And what it does is it basically just goes in and sets up your information in their phone, and you can just tap it to their phone. They can scan a QR code, and there's lots of ways. But there's lots of ways that you can use this to boost contact with your existing sphere of influence. And this video, this gives you some great information. And he even gives you some great information for social media along with the digital business card. So this is this little video. It's not very long. It's maybe 15 minutes long. It is definitely worth a watch and definitely worth considering. He has these digital business cards cost $150 a year, but Realty World has a special deal where it's $150 period. And that gives you that, so you don't pay annual like everybody else. You just pay one time for your digital business card, and then you're never going to have to buy business cards again. So, you know, $150, that's pretty reasonable for a digital business card and never having to buy cards again, and no annual fee from that point forward. So it's a really good deal. Really encourage you to take the time to go through and review that video. And again, you just click it right here to watch that video. And then the last thing I'd like to point out to you is that Gabrielle Jeans will be doing on the 19th of February, which will be next week, next Wednesday, at 1 o'clock Eastern time. She will be doing another one of her Realty World University training sessions, The Art of Asking Great Questions. And this is her sessions. I try to attend them whenever I can live. And if I can't attend live, then I go in and I'll watch the recording of it, because I always learn things from Gabrielle Jeans. And she has just a ton of great information out there. So I think that it's important to spend the time watching those, and you can just you can register for that, and it'll send you an email. You can add it to your calendar. Then on the day of the training, you just go to your calendar and click on the link that's in the calendar appointment, and it'll take you right to the webinar. Really easy to do, and it's something that I would really recommend that you do. The other thing is the BoldTrail platform itself. You can see that it looks a little different than it did when it was KV Core, but a lot of it's the same, at least for now. You know, they didn't want to, when they rebranded as BoldTrail, they didn't want to change the user experience dramatically at first, to give you opportunity to kind of get used to some of the new features. One of the things they have right up here is what they call an Omni search bar. And you'll learn about this if you watch that BoldTrail video back on the Realty World Dashboard. But if you click in here, it's cool because it pulls up recent people that you've looked at, as well as all your products, that you can go directly to things without having to hunt around for it. You can just type in here what you want, and it'll take you right there instead of having to navigate down this side here. So this Omni search bar is kind of a cool thing that they've done, but that's not what I want to call your attention to. What I want to call your attention to is system training, which is right over here to the right, and specifically the learning portal. So when you click on that, it will pull up for you a learning portal where there are classes in here that you can take. So for instance, there's an Agent Quick Start class for BoldTrail. Now, if you've taken the Quick Start, most of you have taken the Quick Start for KV Core. I would highly recommend that you go back in and take the Quick Start for BoldTrail, because it will help you understand some of the new features and some of the new benefits that you have available to you in BoldTrail. So I would definitely recommend that you go in and take this course. There's 34 lessons in that course. It's self-paced, so you can do it at your own pace. There's also BoldTrail daily calls and task management. So if you want to drill down a little bit further on a CRM perspective, customer relationship management, then you can take this course, and it's going to drill down a lot more for you. It's going to have BoldTrail Present. This is the the CMA or the listing presentation that that BoldTrail has to offer. And so you can go in and you can take a course to learn how to do that. And then down below, there's more courses. You can just click through to find courses and take courses that are of interest to you. They are self-paced. So for instance, this one, the BoldTrail Present Quick Start course is 5 lessons. So it will teach you how to use that. And that's a feature that you have in your BoldTrail account that's available for you to use. So even if you don't use the CRM, you can use the BoldTrail Present, or you can use the BoldTrail listing machine portion. So this is BoldTrail really has some good tools for you. And so from a Realty World perspective, I just wanted to point that out to you. So any questions so far on any of these things? Okay, I'm going to stop my share for now. And okay. So interesting. Okay, there we go. All right. What I want to do here is cover a couple of things. If there's no questions, I'd like to cover a couple of things that I think are important. One is homestead deductions. And this is the time of year when we need to be aware of deductions that may have fallen off houses that we are representing buyers on. This is probably more important from a buyer perspective, but could also be important from a seller perspective as well. So let's say you have a situation where last year someone got divorced, and so there was a quit claim deed done, and so one person dropped off. That homestead exemption needs to be refiled, and if it wasn't refiled, that will have dropped off at the end of the year. And it will be until 2026 before that can be reestablished as a deduction, which means that the taxes will go up for 2025 for a no deduction, no homestead deduction. That deduction can also fall off in an estate situation. So let's say someone passed away last year, and so they weren't living in the property at the end of the year. That homestead deduction will fall off in 2025. And that means that anybody who buys that house will be paying higher taxes for their 2025 taxes that'll be due and payable in 2026. So you just need to be aware of that. Another way that it could fall off is, let's say that you have a seller who purchased a new home at the end of last year. And so they moved the homestead exemption to their new home. Then the homestead exemption will have fallen off the old home. And so a buyer purchasing that home will not have that homestead exemption on there. So you need to be aware of that so you can prepare a potential buyer for that kind of situation. So it's just important to realize that homestead deductions can make a big difference on taxes, and there's lots of things that can cause that to fall off. So for instance, I just last year before Christmas, I sold a client a new home in Britton Falls. They are preparing their home to sell this year in the Admirals. Well, the homestead deduction will have fallen off that property. So anybody that is interested in buying that property, initially the taxes are going to look like it has homestead on it because in 2020 2024, it had homestead on it, but in 2025, it won't. So the taxes would go up in 2025, payable 2026. So a buyer needs to be aware of that because their mortgage payment could go up dramatically to pay that increased property tax. And this is extremely important if you've got someone that you're working with that's a first-time home buyer and they're already strapped for cash, and maybe it's the bare minimum that they can pay. Man, you want to check on that homestead exemption to make sure it's still active. Although I think a lot of properties first-time home buyers buy are investment properties, and they don't have homestead exemptions on them typically anyhow. So just beware. And just keep in mind, if it's off, you can refile for it now in 2025, but it won't kick in until 2026 taxes payable 2027. Any questions on homestead exemptions? Okay. Other thing I wanted to talk about is home inspections, and I'd like for you guys to respond. So unmute yourselves and respond. How many of you attend the home inspection with your seller or buyer? How many of you attend the home? Anybody?
Seller, never. Buyer, I go to the end.
I
To
go
the
to,
end.
I go to the end too.
Same for
Okay.
me. I'd show up at the end, get the summary.
Show up at the end. Okay. Anybody
Same
show up
here.
at the beginning?
Sometimes I show at the beginning, sometimes in the end, depending.
Yeah.
I've done the beginning if off market or something in lockbox situations.
Yeah. Interesting. I always show up at the beginning, never the end. I always show up at the beginning. And the reason I show up at the beginning is, first of all, I want to make sure they get in the house and that the inspector gets in the house. And I want to make sure that everything's as it should be, utilities turned on and things of that sort. And again, one of the things that I try to do is prior to the home inspection, I touch bases with the listing agent to make sure that the utilities are on and that there's access to the attic and the crawl space if there's a crawl space. I want to make sure that those there's access to those. So if the access is in a closet, for instance, that needs to be cleaned out so that the inspector can get to it. The inspector will not move anything to gain access. Same thing with the panel typically in the garage, the electric panel. Make sure that the seller doesn't have things stacked up in front of the electrical panel because the inspector needs to get to that and take the whole panel off. So it's important to touch bases, but one of the things that I do, one of the reasons I attend the beginning is I want to look and make sure that everything's good to go. Also want to make sure that the inspector and the client are getting together and they're gelling, and then I bail out because I don't want them to talk to me. I want them to follow their inspector around. Now, one thing I've learned that you could do that's kind of an interesting idea, and that is you could call or you could ask the inspector, hey, if anything major comes up on the inspection, would you give me a call and I'll come back? So that's a way that you could, if you want to be there and for something that's a major issue, then you could put that. I don't advise attending the whole inspection because I think it gives you some level of liability that you were there and looked at all these things and And the inspection is for the buyer to do their due diligence. And so I just would be my recommendation that you maybe not be there for the whole thing, but and you can be there for the end. That's fine. You know, if you're coming in at the end of the inspection, then you can get a rundown from the inspector and your clients of what to expect as far as a response is concerned. So that's perfectly fine too. I just prefer to do it in the beginning. Also, another thing with home inspection. So you one of the keys is that you have to have reasonable timeframes. And so if your time frame is not reasonable, then you can't hold the buyer or seller to their response time. So you need to make sure that if you're a buyer, you give adequate time for the seller to get estimates and respond. So, you know, it's not good to give a, 48-hour response time on an inspection response. You want to give that seller time to get estimates on repairs that you're requesting. From the seller perspective, if you're having trouble getting those estimates and it becomes apparent that you're going to need to extend the time, don't wait until the last minute to do that. Once you've determined that you're not going to be able to get all the estimates, you should ask for an extension right then and there and explain why, so that you're not at the last minute trying to push off an inspection response. So just look ahead, think ahead, and don't push that thing to where you're asking the day of your response if you can extend, because that's not the best way to do that. So any questions from any of you? Do you have any questions? I think we're finishing up a couple minutes early, actually, today.
Oh, hey,
So-
Jim, I might be writing an offer on a FSBO. I
Yeah,
assume that's treated just like any other with the changes, asking for commissions now on the offer. That
Yeah.
doesn't really change anything.
yeah, that's what I would do. Yep.
Blake, are we seeing any appraisal issues lately?
I've not run into any. No.
I ran into one on the Britton Falls home that I sold that was 10,000 under. But the seller reduced the price to accommodate the low appraisal. I also had a low appraisal on the property that I helped Virginia with, and it was in Saxony. That appraisal also came back 10,000 under. And again, the seller lowered the price to the appraised value. So in both cases, the seller did not balk at lowering the price. But I thought in the Saxony one for sure that they had and possibly even the Britton Falls one, that they had a potential of appealing that, but they elected not to.
Were those FHA or local lenders or any?
They were both local lenders.
Okay. I'm dealing with, it's I had a seller counter appraisal language twice, which I thought was weird. And he's a local lender. So I thought maybe he's seeing a lot of low appraisals or something is why he was so worried about it. But
yeah, at the closing, I mentioned it to the agents, have they been seeing low appraisals? And both of them said no. So yeah, I don't know, but I do think that, you know, the market has slowed in terms of multiple offers. Although I read this morning that, you know, that out in California, the wildfires, a widow was selling her property. Now she's had to sell it for a extreme loss because there's no house on it anymore. It had been appraised, I think, at 2.7 million with a house on it. She listed it for $999. It had 60 offers on it and
Jeez.
sold for over $1 million. Crazy real estate out in California. But here we're not seeing as much in the multiple offer range anymore. I mean, have you guys had multiple offers on anything recently?
The deal that I was just talking about with that lender, we were in multiple offers.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it still happens. You know, the best properties are still the best properties and most desirable. So, okay. Any other questions or thoughts?
Had an interesting scenario related to our psychologically affected properties that we discussed last week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I had buyers that were interested in a property. I sent them the seller's disclosure. The name of the seller was Richard Matthew Allen. Does anybody recognize that name?
Oh my
No.
gosh. Yes.
You got it, right? Exact
Right.
middle name as well. The middle name is exact. That is the Delphi killer. That is
Oh,
the name of the Delphi killer. So I had to ask the seller if this was the same guy or the real estate agent.
yeah.
He's not the same guy, but what an unfortunate name, huh?
What an unfortunate name. Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting wrinkle.
Yep. So
Let's see. Now, next week we will not have a Tuesday at 10 Zoom meeting because we're having a meeting on the 20th here in the office for lunch, and it's going to be we're having some guest mortgage people. So save up all your mortgage questions. Blake will be participating, right, Blake?
sure. Yeah, I'll give opinions. Sure.
Blake will be participating. William will be participating, as well as Corey and Amy Drudge from Ruoff Mortgage. They will be our guest speakers. We'll also have a guest speaker of a home handyman service. And so just be prepared with your questions for this group of people. And I'm sure they'll have interesting things to talk to us about. I hope we hear about assumption process of assuming loans. I think that's something that might be a good topic to talk about. So at any rate, we will have lunch at 12 o'clock noon in conference room 1. And I will send out the agenda here in a little bit, along with what we'll be having for lunch. So any other questions? All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
you.